fog is messing with my laser rangefinder. The laser can't get through the water vapor. I think that starling's at about 105, 110 yards. Got the scope camera on my Bobcat 25, my Vortex HSLR scope on here. There's a few hundred cattle here, house underneath, tin roof sheds. They got it blocked off from the north, keep that really cold north wind off them. And it's open from the south here. This, of course, shelters the cattle, and it also makes really good habitat for starlings and sparrows. The birds make a mess of things, and that's why I'm here. Starlings have really rebounded. I haven't been out here as often as I should. They really bounce back. I got the gun zeroed at 60 yards. Very, very foggy today. But the good news is that the glass, this Vortex scope, amazing clarity. Even in this fog, I can easily take shots at 100 yards. Did I mention this gun was accurate?
And you can probably see on these really long shots how the pellet starts up and to the right and then hooks back over into the left. This is because after some time I actually dialed my scope to compensate for the wind at 62, 65 yards, something like that. So what you're actually seeing is the pellet heading up and to the right against the wind, and the wind pushes it back to 0 at 65 yards, and then I hold a little bit more, and it comes down, hooks, smacks the bird at 100 yards.
The scope is different than I usually have. This is a MOA scope, not a $0.0 scope. And it's also first focal plane. And I thought the learning curve would be kind of big for that. Really, really fast. So basically what first focal plane means is you can see that when I zoom the scope, the crosshairs zoom with it. What this means is I don't have to do any math anymore. Pause the lesson. There's some birds right here. As I was saying, first focal plane means that when I zoom the scope, the crosshairs respond to that zoom. So the distance between the dots, or the hashes in this case, is the same regardless of my magnification. When I showed you that $0.0 range estimation episode, it was a 3-part episode shooting pigeons off a grain bin. We had to account for changing the magnification. But with the first focal plane, you don't. Now, it seems like a pretty good idea, right? So why aren't all scopes like this? Because first focal plane scopes are expensive. This one costs $900. Oh, we got some more birds here now. I think I could do that 100 more times and not get bored of it. And what I mean by that is it's not the act of killing a bird. You know, I'm okay with that. It doesn't bother me one way or the other. But it's more of the mastery of physics. That is the most enticing part of all this. So when I drill a bird at 100 yards, holding over, adjusting for wind, I'm not rejoicing because the bird is dead. That's the way it is. But I'm rejoicing because, as a hunter, the goal is always to dispatch something as quickly and painlessly as possible. And when you can do that, it's satisfying. So that's what my little smirk's all about. That, and I'm just a happy guy. It's not like I'm smiling like the Grinch or anything. I love that movie.
Now here's why I love these quiet air rifles. My first shot here on the backside of the barn wasn't perfect. I didn't have my windage quite right, and I missed this bird outright. But because the muzzle report on this gun is so quiet, I get another shot on these birds, and I do not make the same mistake the second time.
With the extension tube on this gun, let me show you. That longer tube there, I get 80 to 90 shots at 50 foot-pounds of energy before I need to refill, with an FPS spread of about 20-22. Now it works out great on a day like this, especially because I'm using that tube as balance. But if I was walking through the woods, take that long tube off, put the small tube on, now I get about 50-55 shots, shorten the shroud down, perfect woods walker. And since we redesigned this stock, this thing is infinitely easier to carry around now. What I like to do is just grab the handle here, put my index finger behind the trigger, and just carry it around like this. Even with the extension tube on here, and the bipod, and the camera, and the mount, it's probably 13, 15 pounds. but the grip is so solid that, you know, it doesn't want to slip out of your hand one bit. Having co-developed this stock with FX, I am completely biased, so maybe don't listen to a word I say. I like it a lot. The new stock actually uses the air tube as a skeleton for the whole thing. It slips through here. See that? So it's removable now. So to take the gun out of the stock's a little more cumbersome because you got to remove the air tube, but it twists off. And you don't have to decompress the gun. Take the air tube off, take the Allen screw out right here, and that lifts out of the stock. The way it uses it as a skeleton is through this slit right here, there's a grub screw. And that grub screw has a rubber tip on it, and that rubber tip pushes against the air tube. So the stock kind of braces itself like this against the air tube, and that gives the whole thing a really solid feel without any wobble at all. When you can shake the crap out of this.
I went back and looked at my archives of me shooting the .25 caliber $幺零 The pellet would be 40-50 yards downrange before the gun settled down, so I could actually watch the continued flight. This .25 Bobcat, at the same power, recoils a fraction of what the $幺零does. Now, compared to a .22 long rifle, they both barely recoil at all. But if you're someone like me trying to record through the scope camera, that reduced recoil makes a huge difference with the quality of footage that I can capture.
Alright guys, that's gotta be it for today. They gotta move some cattle around, which means we gotta call it quits for today. And I kinda like this shooting from the truck thing. It could be -20, I don't care. This is really quite comfortable. Thanks for watching. See you at the next video. Oh my god, it's still recording. Oops.